That is literally the fucking worst thing you can do. Hi there, and welcome to episode 2 of season 2 of Hav and Charles Talk Comics. I'm one of your hosts, Charles Herring, and I am here with my good friend Javier Gonzalez, the other host.
Hey, Charles.
Hi, Hav. How you doing?
I'm good. I was trying not to crack up because you did the weirdest countdown with your fingers that I think you did like all sorts of different. You started like with this, and then you started doing thumb to finger, and it threw me. You pulled me way off sides.
It's sign language.
Oh,
One,
see?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
And now I know
Yeah,
what that is. Cool.
yeah.
Okay.
I thought you knew what it was, and you were laughing about that. You just had no clue what. Okay.
I thought you were just making something up on the fly. Like I'm just gonna start touching my fingers weird.
I do that when I'm talking about warranties at work. Because we have 3 year extended warranties and 5 year, but it turns it into a three. It turns it into a 4 year warranty or a 6 year warranty, and I literally do six in sign like just because I just do it, and I don't think any customer has any idea what I'm doing. So
I did not. No clue.
so today we're going to talk about Cosmic Odyssey, which Hav suggested, and we're going to talk about a run of Spider Woman because Charles can't get away from things with spider related characters to hit to them.
Which isn't a bad thing.
We all have our fetish.
Yeah. Hey, and
Hav's boring group books with new Genesis whatever stuff that anyway, I'm sorry, I'll save it for the podcast. Oh wait, we're on the podcast.
yeah, we're doing the podcast, Charles. We're recording, remember? That's what
Weird
we're doing here.
fetish. Weird fetish.
You know, I was trying to decide whether or not I was going to keep on doing newer stuff, but I really wanted to revisit. I wanted to reread Cosmic Odyssey. I read it when it came out back in the late 80s, and I was curious to see, like we do with a bunch of this stuff that's, from back then, 80s, especially, does it hold up? If it doesn't, what doesn't hold up about it? What does? So that was my impetus for suggesting Cosmic Odyssey. Why did you suggest Spider? Oh, go ahead.
I will say I do think it held up. I mean,
Okay.
it is what it is. I don't think they do necessarily a much better job on it than that. I did the Spider Woman one just because it was just a when I read it, I really enjoyed it a few years ago, and I was like, hey, this is a pretty good run. And I was looking for something to branch out to hopefully some comic skaters at some point might listen to our thing. And they keep suggesting superheroes with women in it. I don't. That's not the real Spider-Man. This Johnny come lately Spider Woman that they made with this new woke. I mean, she was what in the '70s that they came out with Spider Woman. I didn't look it up, so I just want to
Right.
see if I can pull somebody off sides with a comic that I quite enjoyed. Although I'm pretty sure the Miss Marvel, if they listen to season 1, will do that. Oh, and
Oh, I was gonna
Gwenpool.
say, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gwenpool's Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers. Oh, and I'm gonna say when, not if, you do suggest reread Ultimate Spider-Man by Bendis and Miles Morales. That's the big one that you just have to say that Miles Morales is Spider-Man,
Miles
and
Morales
they
is
all.
Spider-Man. Peter Parker calls him
Ex-
Spider-Man. I only say that because I just got caught up on the current Miles Morales run. Well, as far caught up as Marvel Unlimited allows you, so I'm 3 to 6 months behind wherever they're running it.
yeah.
And there's been a lot of crossover with Peter Parker Spider-Man coming over, and he calls him Spider-Man. Hey, Spider-Man. Hey, other Spider-Man. I mean, they're great.
Right.
Well, actually, at first they're both sometimes like, I mean, Spider-Man, or
Yeah. Hey,
Spider-Man.
Peter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they know each other's
No, I
names.
get you.
So, yeah,
Uh,
and
no.
really, the,
Go
the
ahead.
the whole point, the reason I suggest these has nothing to do with a woke agenda. It's that I enjoy, God help us, a diverse, different aspects of superhero comics. I really love superhero comics, but I don't always have to read about a white male as a superhero.
Right, and that's what kills me when they go all bombastic and get on their soapbox about, whatever it is, Captain America, Steve Rogers, or Spider-Man's Peter Parker or Superman as Clark Kent. For the vast majority of superhero comic books, the vast majority of the heroes have been white males. So, oh my God, God forbid there's some women, there's some people of color that are actually represented in the comic books where kids reading this stuff can identify with the not that I did not identify or like the superheroes I read that weren't Hispanic, for example, or were white males, but like I said before, it was kind of cool to see, even though badly portrayed, a comic book character like Vibe
Yeah.
in that Justice League run I talked about, I think
Hmm.
last season. You know, and on top of that, there's a lot of the creators, that kind of organically get in there. You know, the news came out that George Perez, the longtime comic book artist and writer, I don't know if you keep up with this stuff, but he's been diagnosed with like stage something bad, pancreatic cancer,
Oh,
inoperable. Yeah, George Perez, longtime Marvel and DC. He had some runs on Avengers, on the Marvel side, and then he was the guy with
he was Superman.
Wolfman that he did
Wasn't
Superman
he?
for a
Didn't he
while.
do a lot of Superman? Yeah.
He did a lot of Superman. He did him and Marv Wolfman did Teen Titans. That was the big deal in the
Uh,
80s, which was
okay.
Teen Titans was DC's kind of answer to the X-Men, although I don't think it sold as well, but it was still really well received and good. And his art, oh, for example, he was the artist on the big JLA Justice League of America Avengers crossover that happened in the late 90s, early 2000s. I don't know if you ever read that, which was a big deal. And
No. No,
the
I
last time
didn't.
the
I'm sure
companies
you'll make me.
I was well. That may be coming down eventually, but because there's creators like George Perez, and I've noticed that Javier Rodriguez was the artist on Spider Woman on this go around, which would I think it's good that there's some whatever diversity in comic books. Oh my God, that shouldn't be a bad word,
I
diversity.
I I could not agree more. And no, I really just like this Spider Woman run because it delved into some interesting aspects of day to day life of a superhero, which we'll get
Which you
into.
dig,
I dig. It is to me. It's a character thing. I like stories that explore a character as much or more than and I like action as well. But give me something about the character that's interesting, and I think, and we'll get to that in the second half of the pod. I think there's some interesting going on with. Well, she's an interesting character anyway. That doesn't
right?
even get into origin stuff in this, which I felt okay with since we didn't do a Spider Woman origin, which is that's some weird stuff, and she's had a storied history and
Right.
etc. And I think I mentioned we were gonna read this Spider Woman art when she back in season one when we were talking about that mutant massacre because she was randomly shoved onto one of the teams in mutant massacre
Right.
and
She
it
was
was
on the
just like
government sponsored Freedom Force.
yeah, and I don't even think she had like one line maybe or two lines, if that. I would say when I read it again, I'll count them. Except let's be honest, I'm not going to read that again. I'm being overly mean to you this early in a podcast, and I want to apologize. Okay, so let's talk about
But take them in order like we
Cosmic
do.
Odyssey.
Cosmic Odyssey, first issue of this four-issue kind of maxi series, was released in September of 1988, DC, and I'll just give a quick synopsis, I guess. It starts off with Metron, a new god. So let me back up. So this is heavy into some DC Jack Kirby creations.
I,
You
I
got the new gods.
I did notice one thing about the new gods. He heavily borrowed from Asgard. I realized that, and they did Thor, and he was part of Thor. So I'm not saying he stole from Thor, but you can see he based this off pantheons, and including the Allfather, which is because don't they call the leader of New Genesis the Allfather or
High Father.
oh, I'm
See?
sorry.
See what
You're
he did
right.
there?
Oh,
You see what he did there?
it's completely different. I apologize.
Right. No,
Jack Kirby didn't borrow from his own work. Oh wait, which he borrowed heavily on Stan Lee's direction from a
from Greek
Norse
from Norse
from a Norse
mythology. Yeah.
pantheon. I mean,
Well, and speaking of Norse mythology and like Ragnarok, this anti-life thing is the end of everything,
yes,
right?
it's Ragnarok. Yeah,
But I don't know that.
I would say it's the wolf that's going to eat the moon.
There you go.
Is that the right?
I don't know.
Oh, I'm trying to
I'm not
remember my
big on
Norse
the.
mythology. Anywho,
But so
if
Metron
I am
is
correct,
good.
if I am incorrect, please feel free to email us at havandcharlestalkcomics@gmail.com. Havandcharlestalkcomics@gmail.com. The only way anyone that listens to this podcast could possibly reach out to Hav or Charles. Well, the only way
Exactly.
that The only way that we'll read it on the podcast if you tell us. If you correct me, just like that happened the last time when Caesar corrected me over text, I did not bring it up at all. So the only reason okay. I've bored myself with that bit. But we do have an email. And I appear to have oh
There we go. You're
yeah, you
back.
went away for a second.
Yeah, I did. That was weird.
So chapter 1 of 4, or as the
Oh
kids are
yeah.
calling it, issue 1. I was about to say episode 1 of 4, so I changed it to chapter till I got the right word because I didn't want to have our first the first mistake on that. And since I'm pretty sure I got through episode 1 without saying episode for issue.
You did, I think,
Yeah,
and I think you
growth.
had been doing good towards the end
I had.
of
I
last
had.
season too.
I just don't want to start this stuff over. I
No, I'm proud. I'm proud of you.
So we were talking about issue 1.
Okay, so Metron is one of the new gods. This very big, pantheon of super beings that live off in this pocket universe. And Metron is like the seeker of knowledge, dude, and his Mobius chair. And he's always trying to find. His whole goal is to find knowledge, and he's trying to reach out to this other dimension and make contact with this anti-life entity, and he does, and to his chagrin, because it rocks his world in a bad way. And then he stumbles back into our universe, dark side, and he cuts off the anti-life from trying to invade, except for these four aspects that make it back, and they're just kind of in the comic book depicted as these black little blob things that then go off into separate parts of the galaxy. And
And
Darkseid retrieves Metron. Go ahead.
and they basically possess somebody, from what I can tell.
Right, they are sentient.
Yes,
They
and they can
take
kind of take
over.
over someone and make them do something. What we find out later, unless you don't want me to spoil that part, it's just
No, go, hey, you can beat it. Yeah, I usually am the one that does this,
well,
but go
that's not
for it.
really a spoiler. It's just the whole gist of this is those 4 things. We're going to come to find out that the anti-life, now that it knows that this universe exists, really wants back in. And if it comes, it's going to wipe out everything in the universe, but the only way it can come is to have a massive breach. And the way it's going to do that is to take 2 out of 4 solar systems. It has to implode their sun, basically, in order to destabilize the entire Milky Way. So, I mean, I'm sure the science is completely rock solid on this. I
Right, I'm
I
sure it's
have
based on
no
very
doubt.
hard science.
I have no doubt that they got with Stephen Hawking, and they were like, so if we implode Alpha Centauri and our own solar system, it's going to completely imbalance the entire Milky Way and have it implode, correct? And Hawking was like, yeah, sure, whatever, moron.
Yeah, and of course, Earth is one of the planets involved.
Yes. Well,
It's
it
got to
has
be
to be.
Earth.
We have to have a rooting
So,
interest. What do we care if the entire Milky Way is destroyed as long as we're still. Oh, wait.
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Well, and then of course the planets that are involved, 3 of them are ones that are known very much so in the DC universe. There's Ron or Ran, which is where Adam Strange resides through his theta beam and everything. You got Thanagar, the Hawkman and Hawkwoman world. You got our Earth, and then you have Xanshi, is how I'm saying it.
So some random
Uh,
ass world that they threw in?
I don't, you know what? It may have some kind of
Did it.
something from the Green Lantern. I didn't look it up.
Yeah. Was it red tinted?
I don't even know. Hold on,
That
I'm trying to
okay? You
remember.
missed what that joke was. Never mind. We'll get into that later.
Banshee? No, I don't get it.
Okay,
Okay.
red tinted, like a shirt.
Oh, like this one?
Yeah,
No.
like a red shirt. Yeah,
Oh, like a
like.
red shirt. Oh, I'm sorry, red shirt. Oh my God. Oh, how did I not get that, man? And I'm a Star Trek dude. Gosh darn it. So anyways,
Now that was a spoiler.
yeah, that was a spoiler because Darkseid figures out this is bad to the point where he reaches out to his arch nemesis and enemy, the High Father, because he's Apocalypse, they're, New Genesis, and they're in this pocket universe, and they figure out they need some heavies to help them out. And of course, Earth is central to all the big bad, superpowered heroes. So they reach out through the White House and recruit.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
remember that part?
I do know. I actually kind of really that really amused me. They go to the White House and introduce themselves to the president as an emissary and asking to establish diplomatic relations. And they say that the president's willing to do that, and they're like, "But these are the diplomats we would like." and they give them a
Yeah.
list of superheroes, one of which is Batman, and
Yeah.
so they send all of them. And as when they get there, they're like, "There's something else going on. We knew we weren't diplomats when you included Batman."
Yeah. Yeah. They recruit Batman, Superman, Starfire, Martian Manhunter, and John Stewart, the Green Lantern John Stewart. And they all go to New
Wasn't there
Genesis.
somebody else
Dark.
too?
Did I miss somebody?
Yes.
Martian Manhunter, Batman. Well, Forger and Orion end up pairing up with them. And, oh, and Etrigan, the demon.
There you go. Actually, the
Jason
demon.
Blood.
There you
Jason
go.
Blood.
Jason Blood. Sorry, I didn't
Jason
remember his
Blood. You're
name,
right.
but I did know there was an extra one because nobody can figure out why this random dude, Jason Blood, is there.
This old dude that's like barely able to walk.
Yeah.
You're right. Another DC Jack Kirby creation, the Demon.
Oh, really?
So,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, they all go over to New Genesis,
Hey, I kind of really
and
like that character in other things I've
it,
read. Just as a bit
it's
character, it's a good character.
it is a
See,
cool character.
I
Does
don't
the right?
hate Jack Kirby.
Sure, I believe you. Does does the Ryman get on your nerves from the Demon? Did you
No,
notice that?
no, no, I actually I like rhyming.
Okay,
I've always liked
that's
rhyming. Does that sound weird?
that's
Because I mean, I don't think it's weird
yeah.
to like.
Okay, it's a bit.
It
It's
is
his
a
thing.
bit. Yeah, I and it's not like every character does it. And
Yeah.
I mean,
Uh,
angels and demons speak all funky anyway. I kind of like that.
yeah. So, okay, so I feel like the synopsis is taking a while. Just to talk about it, they all go to New Genesis. They get paired off in teams to go to these planets
Oh, I was
to
so.
stop.
Oh, in fairness, I was flipping through the pages just real quick this morning because it's been a couple of weeks since we
Uh,
read it. Hobbs' internet went out last week. We were going to record this
oh
last
yeah,
weekend, so we were both ready. Hobbs' internet just went out. And he was so it
Fred.
was very nice. He goes, oh, I'm like, dude, it's nothing you can do about it. That's fine. Well, that's not one of us got drunk and was too hangover to record or anything. That's just nothing we can do about it. So, but I was flipping through and I was in my head just making because I'm at that point flipping through at that speed. I'm like, oh my god, the structure of this is just the structure of it's literally the structure to what was the Marvel thing? Not Marvels, but the other one we did on the season finale that was Busick as well.
Oh, the Avengers Forever.
Avengers Forever. It is the exact same structure. Gather a disparate set of superheroes, split them up into four groups, do some stuff, come back, and then actually do what you need to do. Including,
Right.
holy shit, including losing an entire world.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
And that's not. By the way, I took a seminar called Beyond Structure once, and it was about screenwriting, and it's going behind not structuring, it's going behind beyond that on how to character arc and what you're looking for to develop a character. And one of the things that was that part of it was incredibly fascinating. I really enjoyed that. But then he had a solution to always have ideas on how to base structure of and story ideas, where to get it, it's an endlessly generating story idea place. To him, it was the back of the TV guide, and you or the TV guide in your newspaper. You would read the synopsis of a Friends episode, and then you would take that this and this and this, and then you would build your own episode based on that. And in fairness, it can actually work, and it's why you get tropes in sitcoms. I don't know if you ever watched Community.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's all they did. I mean, not all they did, but there was a lot of what they did.
well, they did it to make fun of that. But yes, that
Yeah.
is, I mean, they because they would take them and they would break them as they did it, and that was a great thing. And the Russo brothers were good at that, and that's why they were so good at their movies, their Marvel movies, where they're based on Marvel comic books, which are structured in a certain way, and then they were able to play within that and really do some stuff.
Nice. Hey, and did you just put the connection just now live on the podcast between Avengers Forever and Cosmic Odyssey, or is this something you had thought about?
I literally put it together. I was looking at it this morning, and I recognized the structure of what they
Gotcha.
did and to split it up. And I know I had seen it a number of times. And see, what I'm saying is that's essentially every group book. That is
Yeah.
essentially every group book and every one of these big. this wasn't that big an expansion because it was often a pocket universe. So especially those four run what have you, it is broken up. You can do that again with similar things happened in what was the good one we read that was like 3 issues that was right after World War II and Hitler came back as Nuke
Which
Boy.
oh, the Golden Age.
Golden Age. Loved Golden Age. Very similar structure.
Right. Well, I mean, speaking of structure, Endgame, right? They go into the movies. They split up to
Yes,
go to the different
that
time
that is
periods, and
you are exactly right, and it
okay,
works. So just the structure of a story is not as is honestly not as important as what goes on in the story. My main problem with Odyssey is what went on was just blah. It was the same thing with Avengers Forever. What went on was just meh. There's I, I I wasn't ever really engaged, even though in Cosmic Odyssey the entire fate of the universe it was on the
at stake.
line, except it really wasn't. Well,
Yeah.
because it was just it one. It's again. I think I've mentioned this. It was too big. I find a lot of I think they go too big, and it makes it hard to encompass that. Although in the movies with Endgame and the other, they kept it grounded enough with the people and showed enough of what went on that it made it meaningful. Because it's hard to encompass this awfulness unless you bring it down a little bit, and
Well,
they
because they
don't do
built up
that.
the characters. There had been the
Yes.
character development in Infinity War. By the time they got to Infinity War and Endgame, you were engaged and involved with the characters.
Well, and beyond that, in Endgame, you also saw, even if you hadn't been as engaged with the characters, when you saw Ant Man come back and look at what society was like there, when you saw Captain America hosting a self help group because he really had experience in this kind of thing, coming back the way he did, and then going out after that. These are small notes that and again, this is where it doesn't hold up because I think if someone were writing Cosmic Odyssey right now, it had been hard to do that. I mean, they were trying to do that, I guess, back on Earth with the stuff that went on Earth with the person that they possessed and did, but it just I had no it
You
didn't
weren't invested in the
I
characters.
was not invested in any way whatsoever.
Well, let me just jump on something you mentioned. The Cap self help group from Endgame.
Uh
It's
huh.
funny that you mentioned that because one of the people that makes a cameo in that self help group is Jim Starlin, the writer of Cosmic Odyssey.
Really, I didn't know
He's
that.
the bald dude with glasses. Because
Really,
and Jim Starlin on the Marvel side created Thanos, Gamora, Drax the Destroyer, and I'm missing one, I think. So what was also interesting, and he did that all for Marvel in the I want to say mid to early '80s. Then he goes over to DC, and of course back then there was the whole thing about okay Thanos, the dark side. There's some similarities there, and they were pretty much
a-
not on
absolutely.
accident.
Oh no, they were beyond on accident because when Starling did he develop it or was he the creator of it? Of
Of
Thanos.
what? Oh,
Thanos.
he created
He
Thanos.
created Thanos. Okay.
Under direction from editorial, like we want a character like Dark Side, I think, or something. No,
That's no, that's not exactly how it works from what I understand because I've read some
okay.
Marvel books. So what the way it was is he created a character. He was ripping off a different one.
Oh,
And what came from editorial was, good God, if you're going to rip it off that directly, you have to use Darkseid.
gotcha.
So it was one of these. No, 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 because he was writing a thing with what ended up as Thanos, but what was going on was he was I think it was, and you cannot quote me on that. This is not obviously you're not writing this down. I'm recording it, but
No,
in my head it's Metron, or what is that the name of the guy that the other one? I
yeah,
think
that
it's
goes.
him.
Yeah,
I think it was him that he was basing it on, or it's somebody else, and I'd have to look it up. And I don't. We don't need a Charles Types segment brought to you by the
yeah,
public
yeah, yeah.
library. The public library. It's free, yo. So
No, that's fine. No, I just wanted to point out the Jim Starlin connection between DC and Marvel, and
yeah.
that he had created
Mm-hmm.
the Dark Side counterpart in Thanos
Mm-hmm.
for Marvel Comics, and then he's here doing this. And you had mentioned the Cap self help group, and he was
That's
in the
awesome.
cameo there.
Yeah.
He's the bald guy with glasses, if you remember that guy.
Okay. It was the gay guy was one of the Russo brothers.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
which
Right.
both the idea that why they finally put a gay character in Marvel Comics, but a straight white director played the character.
Baby steps. Baby steps, man. All right. Come on. So Jim Starlin writes it. The great Mike Mignola is the artist or the penciler, and of course he would go on to Hellboy and that whole franchise. He created it, did it at Dark Horse, and that's been a movie franchise or two now, or they tried a second go at it. Going back to what you're saying about not being invested, of course, I think if you had been reading the characters back then, like I was, I knew Martian Manhunter
I
from the
know,
Justice League
dude, I
International.
know literally all of them except the John Stewart Green Lantern, but I know of him. So it's not like I don't
Okay,
know the character. I mean, it's Batman, Superman, Martian Manhunter. These are,
Starfire.
well, Starfire I didn't know jack about.
She's from the Teen Titans,
Okay.
Titans or whatever,
Oh,
Teen
that's
Titans.
right, because she's
Um,
also on, isn't she on
the show.
Titans? The show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
She's hotter on the show.
yeah. So you weren't, when John Stewart is puffing up his chest
It was
on
just,
Xanshi and tells Martian Manhunter, "I got this. I'm a Green Lantern. I have the most powerful tool weapon in the universe. You just hang back. I got this." And then he shows up, and of course the weird, whatever
oh yeah,
kryptonite to his
they knew
that's yellow.
he was a Green Lantern, so it was yellow, so he couldn't stop it. So an entire solar system was destroyed because you know what I got from that. I got a whiff of overconfident black man.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
I really that
Gosh,
was a
oh,
mildly
whoa,
stereo.
hold
That
on,
was a mild.
hold on. There's mailman or something. Hold on. I'm just gonna mute out for a second. Lucy, if I can figure out how to mute out.
Don't bother. No, you're fine. We're just
Yeah,
gonna sit here for a second.
Lucy, it's okay. It's okay. Thank you, guard dog. And that's our guard dog, Lucy, who's all of 12 pounds.
Actually, if you've seen what is it on Twitter, racism dog.
Yes.
Somebody will say racism dog. What do you think? And then they'll pop up under going bark bark bark.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Shoot, I had not thought of, but I had not thought of that angle of, but so yeah, John Stewart in Martian Manhunter, not mostly, John Stewart fails because he's overly confident. They paint the darn doomsday device on that planet. Oh, because the aspect, if you, I would suggest people read it. The aspects, the four aspects that make it from the anti-life entity into our universe, build these doomsday devices on each planet. And so the supers are going to try to stop each of the doomsday devices. On that planet, they send Martian Manhunter and Green Lantern. One of my big problems reading it again now, Charles, is why they pair the two most underpowered people together to go to Earth to stop the entity on Earth. They put Forger, who apparently is just kind of fast and strong, and Batman. But they send Orion, who apparently has Superman level strength, and Superman to Thanagar. Like I was like, couldn't they equalize the power ratios on these teams a little bit? Why are you sticking Batman in the lowest tier of the new god insect people person to go to Earth?
Because if Batman has a superpowered person for him to direct and make him use his powers wisely, why you'll never have any kind of problem. It would have been over in 2 minutes. If he had Superman to
Superman.
tell what to do, it would have been over in no time because Superman wouldn't have made the mistakes he normally makes without the good, strong guiding hand of a billionaire.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, no, I thought that was kind of silly too. All wasn't again, it's been a few weeks and this is not staying with me that much except as we're talking about it because I really did not get into it.
Okay.
There's
Fair
literally
enough.
nothing wrong with it other than the stuff I said. It just wasn't something that I'm like, hey, all right, I'm enjoying this. It was just so one, it was about the new gods, which I think is we've discussed
Because you
that
don't like
before.
Jack Kirby, so
No,
there's that.
I don't like the new gods. I don't get the new gods. It's a big idea that's based on not great things. I don't.
Because it's based on the ancient aliens, and we're not smart enough as people to have done pyramids. Okay, that's really
We
what.
can't we can't stack blocks on each other and taper them
No,
upwards.
just because kids do that literally with building blocks, but there's no way we could do that as a society at any point in our history. There's
Uh,
no way.
Now
So what
that
about the other? Okay, the other
now that
part.
hold on,
Go
now
ahead.
that some of the stuff going on in Peru is pretty amazing. With the only way you can really see these giant things laid out on a field is from the sky, but you can lay it out. It was hard, but they make it act as if life was so god awful always back in the past. But I mean, if you had a farm and you could eat, there's some spare time. I mean, the crops are growing. You got time to do shit. Probably
Well, and it's not
more.
like you were sitting. doing a podcast or watching TV,
or or
or
or,
you've had
or
a lot of spare time.
yeah, well, yeah, no kidding. I or working the same kind of hours a lot of us work at times. I mean, anywho, that was just
Yeah.
all of that. Even back when I was a kid, and those were really popular on Saturday afternoon when they get the cheap shows that talked about that. Even young Charles rolled his eyes at that. The
Yeah.
aliens that visited us. And whatever happened to the
Uh,
Bermuda Triangle? We used to worry about the Bermuda Triangle all the time, and you never hear anything about it anymore.
because I don't. It's a best kept secret. They quarantined it off, and we just don't go there anymore. We've learned our lesson.
One of the great things on Agents of Shield, in one of the episodes, something came up. They were doing something, and somebody goes, "Oh, maybe it's the Bermuda Triangle." And Phil Coulson goes, "Oh no, we took care of that in the '80s."
Ha! You know what? I know we're going a bunch of different directions here, but Agents of Shield, I bowed out after I do this with shows too. I'm realizing when they went off into the future
Yeah,
after the Earth had been destroyed, I kind of stopped watching.
I
And I know
gotcha.
there was like another like 2 or 3 seasons that I need to go back and just finish just to
The
complete it.
the last two seasons were pretty good. The space one, I was not enjoying at first, and then I finished it, and then I think I rewatched it and really liked it. Or when I finished it, I liked the whole thing. So I kind of need to go and watch the whole thing. My least favorite season was probably the what's the demon rider, Hell Rider, the
Ghost Rider, Ghost
Ghost
Rider.
Rider. Thank you.
Yeah,
This is this
I
is
liked the
this
Ghost
has
Rider
been
that I
another
saw.
segment of our podcast of Charles can't come up with the name of anything. Charles can't come up with the name of anything. Brought to you by the public library.
Well, speaking of the public library, real fast, both of these available on Hoopla, so there's that, which is nice. I mean,
Yes.
one of the reasons I did suggest Cosmic Odyssey was like, yeah, look at that, it is on Hoopla, perfect. Go ahead. You seem like you're about to say something else.
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay, well, I was gonna just a couple other things. I did, of course, nostalgia. God, I gotta stop using that word. Just wanted to go back and read this because I read it when I was a kid, and the part where they split up into the teams and Superman and Orion. Orion's backstory is that he is actually Darkseid's son, but was brought up on New Genesis by Highfather, which is it's an interesting angle. The flip to that is that Mr. Miracle of New Genesis was brought up on Apocalypse, and they traded sons essentially to try to build, I don't know, some kind of something between the two planets, or rival factions. But the whole thing on Thanagar, when they're trying to stop the entity and Superman's going underground and Orion's going to create a distraction, and then Superman, of course, saves the day, destroys the Doomsday device, comes back up, thinking, okay, well, let's celebrate, and Orion has killed everybody. Just
Yeah.
laid waste to all these Thanagarians that are possessed by the entity, because that's the most powerful
Mm-hmm.
force on that planet. So the entity has this psychic ability, so they're mind controlled, so they're not doing this of their own free will. Orion doesn't give a flying fuck and just says, deal with it.
Yeah.
And I was like, and Superman's, of course, a little chagrined, and Orion's going to leave, and Superman says, no, I have bodies to bury.
Yeah. The whole reason the two of them were together was for that.
Yeah,
Was
yeah,
so that they had the contrast of the two equally powerful beings and how they handle things.
vastly differently.
Yes.
Uh,
And to give
then the
and to,
other, okay.
and to give Superman the contrast and let him be disappointed in Orion and still do nothing about it.
Yeah, he doesn't like it. Yeah, he doesn't punish him or anything. He's just very, very
I
disappointed in
don't
him.
like that you massacred all of these people. Now let's go home after I've buried their bodies.
Yeah. Okay. And then the Orion is the whatever straw man for a couple things, because he's also the one that looks down on Forager. Forager is part of the New Genesis the insect people, and he calls him a bug. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, when Batman and Forager go to Earth, it's Forager that sacrifices his life to save the day, and Orion says something snarky at the end, like, "Oh, look, who knew the bug had it in him?" And Batman, of course, is pissed and hits him and probably breaks his hand on his jaw, but gets pissed because he's still making light of the dude that saved Earth. Which, again, Orion being used for a point
Yeah.
about, I don't know, class, and
Yeah.
this high guy looking down on these insect people. So yeah, there's that. What'd you
So,
think about Doctor? Oh, go ahead.
oh, I got just one quick question. Are all Green Lanterns, because I haven't read a lot of Green Lanterns, are all Green Lanterns absolute assholes?
I think at some level, and I haven't read a bunch of Green.
I
I've
mean,
at
it
runs
it
when Jeff
makes
Johns was on it. I
sense.
read some.
They are space
Yeah,
cops, and all cops are bastards.
A lot maybe. Sure, there's good cops and bad cops. I'm
But
not gonna say all
that
cops are bastards, but
I know. I that's
you.
just
Hey, look, they have
a
to be
cab.
confident.
That yes, I know. I know. Well, you can be confident without being a giant tool,
But remember the whole thing about the
unless
ring
you're
is it's all based
incompetent.
on willpower.
Yes,
It's
and
all
you can have
willpower. So you
willpower
have to
without being an asshole.
but you have to have super confidence in your. I mean, super confidence being to the point of arrogance. I think. Like I am the baddest in this sector. I have the ring, and I can make this ring do anything I want. I can kind of see everybody that them having the ego. You have to have the ego to sport that power ring that can do anything essentially that you can imagine. And I can imagine some freaky things, but you know,
This place is going to be
for
kind of
good.
weird for 100 years. Oh, that was
Yeah, I know.
Guardians of the Galaxy too.
Gardens, yeah, I was going Gardens. No, so yeah, I think Guy Gardner. I mean, the few Green Lanterns I know, Hal Jordan loses his shit and becomes Phalanx and destroys his home city of Coast City or whatever.
Well,
Guy Gardner's.
he also attempts to destroy the entire universe at one point.
Oh, there's that. Yeah,
Yeah,
the Guy Gardner's just an asshole, except for when he bumped his head. It was nice for a little while. Did you like? Yeah, you still do. You still.
fucking Guy Gardner. Jesus fuck. I mean, the
Well,
only
that's
guy
just
they
because of
put
the
next to
haircut. The
Batman
haircut.
and makes Batman not look like an asshole. I mean, that says a lot.
Right.
We got to have a
Yeah.
character so despicable, Batman looks like the good guy next to him.
Yeah. So, and John Stewart was, I don't know. I have not read a lot of John Stewart, and I like my most exposure to John Stewart is from the Justice League animated series,
Okay.
quite frankly. And the other Green Lantern that I love that if you ever do keep on reading Justice League from that run that we started last season, there's a Green Lantern called Nort. G apostrophe Nort. He's like a dog-like Green Lantern humanoid that is the most inept Green Lantern in the universe. He only got the ring because his uncle was some luminary. Somehow there's nepotism in the Green Lantern Corps, and it is essentially he's the comic relief. Like bumbling, what's the guy from the Andy Griffith show?
Barney
Don
Fife.
Knotts' character. He's the Barney Fife of the Green Lantern Corps. He can't do anything right. Is always messing up, but is a lovable, clumsy space cop. Like yeah, Barney Fife. I just came up with that on the fly. The Barney Fife of the Green Lantern Corps, Nort. So that's the Green Lantern takes I have, I guess. I don't know. I was going to ask you what you thought of Doctor Fate being in the background and Batman asking Doctor Fate to keep an eye on Darkseid because he knew Darkseid was going
I
to try to
liked
pull
that.
some shit.
I did like that.
Okay.
I did roll my eye. He asked that once he got back to the U. Once he got back to Earth, right? Because that's when he had the conversation with off. That wasn't something
Yeah.
he didn't do that before they went to New Genesis. He did that when he got back. That made it good because I will be honest. Nowadays, with the way they have decided Batman is, and this is part of the reason why that. Because by the way, we should always think Darkseid is going to pull a fast one. He's
Right.
Space Hitler. Space Hitler is
Yeah.
going to betray you. He's going
With
to
a death
invade.
fetish.
Yes, he is going to. Yeah, Hitler had a death fetish. You can say Space Hitler, and the death fetish is there. He's going to
Yeah.
betray you. He's going to invade Poland. The idea that, but nowadays, if they wrote this because of the fetishization of Batman and his all-knowing, all-powerful planning, you give him enough time, he can beat anyone. I mean, you give me enough time, I can beat anyone.
Yeah.
Infamous. Anyway, now he never would have even had a conversation. Dr. Fate would have just shown up, did his thing at the end, and it would have been, well, Batman told me to plan ahead before he even left for the
No, I like that when Batman goes to New Genesis, gets the lay of the land, gets back and is like, "Holy shit, this is serious. I need a heavy hitter.
yeah.
Who's the biggest heavy hitter I know? Okay,
The,
Dr. Fate."
well,
And I
who's the big
go ahead.
heavy hitter that's not here that's not already gone? And Dr.
Involved.
Fate, yeah, and Dr. Fate's a heavy hitter on so many levels. Yeah, no, it was a good call. One other thing I didn't like, the minute Superman sees Darkseid as he's been called in as a diplomat, Superman called in on a diplomat, Darkseid walks out and Batman immediately attempts to attack him. It's like, dude, you're at a soiree. To me,
Yeah.
that's also part of my Superman and team books and anybody in team books. They for certain things they take away certain aspects of their character because Superman always wants to talk first.
Yeah. That's a good call. I didn't think about that.
It just struck
That's a good
me
point.
as, oh, he just immediately lost his temper and went after him. It's like, this isn't even a dark side that's at this point killed anybody he loves that necessarily. I'm sure he's killed somebody he
And hadn't
knows,
at
but
least hadn't tried anything really bad in that issue so far.
yeah.
He's
I
actually
mean, everything, yeah.
olive branch
He,
in the thing.
yeah. So,
No, the Doctor Fate thing I always have liked, and it's not like I've read a ton of it, but I like the DC supernatural stable of characters. And look, DC's been around a lot longer than Marvel, even though Marvel's been around since the early '60s. But this, Doctor Fate, the Spectre, the Phantom Stranger, Madame Zandu or Xanadu or Zandu, however you say her name. You got Detective Chimp. I know that's one of my weird. I just love that character. You got the Blue
oh
Devil,
well, hold on though.
uh,
You're
Zantana.
talking about their magic stuff, and then you throw Detective Chimp in there. I don't think he's a big mystical guy.
But for some reason, he's always involved with them. For
Oh, is
some
he?
reason,
Okay. Well,
like
he's
there,
a
there, there was a series. There, good.
well, he's throw in. And I'm not. There's. No, I'm not
Well,
making fun of. I'm not making fun of him. I've never read any of him. I think it's. I think it's adorable. He's better than your favorite Marvel character, and I know nothing about him.
wow, you're saying Detective Chimp is better than Cyclops? That is a low blow, but funny and well taken. But I want to say, you know what? It's been a while. Detective Chimp was in a series in the early 2000s, late 90s called Shadow Pact,
Uh
which
huh.
was a mystical. It was like a precursor to Justice League Dark, and it had a bunch of these kind of second tier supernatural characters. Didn't have the big hitters like I just mentioned, Phantom Stranger, Spectre, Doctor Fate, but Blue Devil, a couple other ones. I want to say he dabbles. I don't know. I don't remember. I just remember liking the character a lot. But I was just going to say, so anytime Doctor Fate's around or any of those other characters, I kind of my interest is piqued,
Okay.
especially because they do operate on such a big scale. In fact, there was something we read. Was it Golden Age? It was one of the comic books where they had to have a whole thing where why the mystical DC characters couldn't intervene. Do you remember that? Because otherwise they could have just like snapped their fingers and ended the whole thing. But there was something for some reason the Spectre said, "Hey, everybody, we're sitting this one out because they're so overpowered. Really, you have to have that kind of I don't know if it's a MacGuffin or a thing to make sure that they don't just solve the problem with a wave of the hand."
Well, yeah, especially when you're talking about just massive group books that
Yeah,
everybody's
and
involved
and
in. Hey, why didn't I'm trying to find our
and I'm
podcast?
and I'm blanking on which one it was. I remember. Was it the Golden Age? No, I don't
It
remember.
wasn't the Golden Age.
Anyways,
It was not the Golden
no.
Age.
Okay. So that's about. Oh, the only other things. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on the old Cosmic of the Odyssey.
I don't.
What?
It just didn't do that much for me. It all came out well in the end. The Milky Way did not implode. Orion got punched in the face because back in the 80s that seems to be when and we grew up with that. It seemed to be when somebody says something that really bothered you, you were allowed to punch them in the face.
You punch him. You punch him in
Yeah,
the
you
face.
just punch them in the face.
Henry B. Gonzalez, I don't know if you remember him. He was a U.S. representative from San Antonio in the 80s. He was an older guy. He was elected for the first time to the U.S. House of Representatives when Kennedy was elected president. And he was a long-serving member of the U.S. House of Representatives. And he was at dinner somewhere in San Antonio, and somebody called him a communist, and he punched him out in a restaurant in San Antonio. And there was all talk about he was going to be brought up on criminal charges. Like, ain't nobody going to convict Henry B. Gonzalez in San Antonio of punching somebody for calling him a communist. That guy deserved it. You get called. You call somebody calls you communist or a Nazi. You punch them. You punch their lights out, and you get a free pass. Speaking of punching people out in the '80s, yeah,
Yeah.
that's how we rolled in the '80s.
Was it the
Okay.
nail? Was it the nail?
Yes, I wrote it. It was the nail. It was
Okay,
the nail. It
sorry, I
was
was looking
absolutely the
up. I
nail.
was flipping through the art
Yeah,
the podcast because I think yeah okay, so it was the nail.
it was the nail. Where they had the whole little like half a page thing where why all
Yeah,
the
why here is the
supernatural
place.
DC.
Yeah, here is the place
Yeah,
where we could really use help, and why aren't you helping us? Why aren't you helping us? And well, he told us not to. Yeah.
yeah, we're just the Spectre is kind of in charge, and
Hmm.
he told us to sit this one out, so we're sitting this one out. Oh, the only other thing I wanted to mention, I did mention the art earlier. It's
There was
very
art in it.
distinctive.
No, it's the
There
art
was
was
art in it.
I'm back on my shit. I,
Picture books.
I'm back on my shit.
Picture. No, you're fine.
I did enjoy the art. Yes, it was very well done.
Well, and Mike Mignola is one. There's a handful that I always think of when you see without knowing you're seeing their name in print and see their comic book art like Mike Mignola's art when you see it. And the other ones I always think of are Jack Kirby, Walt Simonson, and I wrote these down because I was thinking about this. Bill Sienkiewicz, Sam Keith, and Larry Stroman are the ones that come to mind. That when you see their art, they're very distinctive styles, different, not your run of the mill. And there's a couple other ones that I know on site, but they're not as unique and just so different than everybody else. Because I, of course, am a big Jim Aparo fan for Batman and Kurt Swan for Superman, but those are more standard 101 Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, for example, too. But those are more which when you think of comic book art, those guys are these guys. While obviously can still tell a sequential story through their art, it's very distinctive, and I just really dig. I dig their I dig Mike Mignola's art. So there's that.
Cool. All right.
Okay. All right. Well, so Spider Woman, eh?
Yeah, Spider Woman. Everyday life of a superhero.
Which again, I'm not knocking it. The you know you like the noir kind of crime stuff, and you
Mm-hmm.
like the like Hawkeye. The hey, what's the everyday life of a super like? And
Mm-hmm.
this is very much. I mean, she's pregnant. She's about to burst when we start.
Yeah, she's
Uh,
she's sitting in the car. She has a detective agency. She's sitting in a car with Ned. Nope, not Ned Leeds. Different reporter. Damn it.
something Urich.
Yes, Ben Urich. Ben
Urich.
Urich.
Ben
Ben
Urich.
Urich.
Okay.
Yeah, he's from the Spider. He's a Spider-Man character. He is a reporter for
Yeah.
the Daily Bugle. He's probably not a reporter for the Daily Bugle at this point, but he has been. He's also been in a lot of Daredevil. Elektra killed him at one point.
Oh.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
a famous New York journalist in the Marvel universe. They have a detective agency, and she can't do anything, so they have a character who used to be a villain, and he is out getting his ass kicked. Except he's winning the fight, and she's talking to him the whole time. And at one
In his
point,
ear.
in his ear, what is his name? Oh God,
The porcupine.
is he the porcupine?
Roger.
Yeah, Roger.
Yes, he's the Roger. Roger the porky.
Yeah,
His
he's.
he. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh,
I love that.
I love him.
Yeah.
He's great. So yeah, he's there, and she's talking. She's in his ear the whole time, and he's driving him nuts. Cause and he finally wins the fight, and he's like, you were in my. He's like, yeah, it's a test. Because she's going on maternity leave. It's time. She's gonna go on maternity leave, and then boom, that's it. Now she's bored because she's not being a superhero. She's just waiting around to have a baby.
Bored to tears.
Mm-hmm.
Bored to tears. And you come to find out that her and Carol Danvers are pretty much BFFs.
Yes, Spider
And
Woman. Jessica Drew was who Bendis was going to do
Alias.
Jessica Jones with. But
Right.
he just made her own. So he kept a lot of there's a lot of stuff. Been an Avenger, Jessica Jones. Been an Avenger. Best friends with Carol
Detective
Danvers.
Agency.
Got a detective agency, and I don't know if Spider Woman had a detective agency at that point, but he definitely took that character and changed some power sets, and it worked, and he wanted his own character. So, or I don't know if he wanted his own character as much, or they told him he couldn't use Spider Woman. I can't remember exactly. I think he wanted it just to be his own, so he didn't have any backstory. He could do the whole any backstory he wanted with it. So yeah, so she's bored and going along, and I is the first episode where she goes to the maternity or the haha fuck
Ah,
is
ding, 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 ding,
the
ding.
first issue where she goes to the maternity ward. No, it's the
No,
party.
I
No,
don't think so.
it's just a
Yeah, go ahead. I sent you some screenshots. Did you get those?
I
I'm
don't know.
sorry. I should have probably mentioned that way back before.
What'd you send them to?
And I sent to your Gmail account.
Okay,
Sorry. And
no,
you
you're
know what? I
fine.
sent you some Cosmic Odyssey screenshots, and I probably should have mentioned that
Yeah.
before. No, I think there's some cool art where there's a huge party where she's making the rounds, and everybody's there. Who and somebody gets Tony Stark's like, "Who's the father?" And
Well,
Carol's like,
yeah,
"No, you should go ask her.
yeah.
Go ask her
I
about that.
that was absolutely one of my favorite things. Was you should go ask her,
Yeah."
and because my
He's like, "You
favorite part,
sure?"
I took a screenshot of that. Mine is you see it in the background because she's still talking to somebody else, and you see in the background Spider-Man because he's wearing his Spider-Man outfit.
Mask.
He's not
Yeah.
maskless. Standing next to Spider-Woman when Tony Stark walks up, and as he walks up, you can see Spider-Man's spider sense go off.
It's better.
And then it
Yeah.
just keeps, as he's talking, it's just even more. And Danvers is over there laughing. And then whoever she's talking to, and I don't remember who it was, says, well, do you know who the father is? Nah, she won't tell me either.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was pretty good.
It was
I
priceless.
thought.
Yeah, no, it was. I
Uh,
screenshot that. It was great. Oh, dang, that's a good
Gosh
one.
darn it!
Uh,
I forgot to send you. I should have mentioned the fact that I sent you some freaking screenshots.
That's fine.
My bad.
No, no, there were some great shots. So one of the things that Carol Danvers says is that she at this point, just to give you a little backstory, Carol Danvers is basically I can't remember if she's already Captain Marvel. I think she is already Captain Marvel instead of Miss Marvel, and she is in charge of A Force. Is that the name of it? The old Canadian team, space
Oh, Alpha Flight.
Alpha Flight, Alpha Flight.
No, Alpha Flight. Yeah.
Yeah, so she is in charge of basically protecting the Earth from external threats. What she's basically doing now, external threats from from outside the solar system coming to attack Earth. So she is all in with what goes on intergalactically. So she tells Jessica
Jessica.
that
Yeah.
she can give her that she has set an appointment for her at an interstellar facility, medical facility, and their maternity ward, and it is where she needs to go, and it'll be great, and she should do it. And she says, "I've got a doctor here, and I'll be fine. Everything's great." And during the boredom, she finally is like, "You know what? Maybe I should go to there." So she goes to this place in Manhattan and enters a maternity ward. And while she's there waiting for her blanket appointment, whenever they are taken, the two Skrulls walk in and take the maternity
The
ward
facility
waiting
over.
room. Well, we that turns out more Skrulls are there to take over the facility, and hijinks
Yeah.
ensue.
No, so yeah, speaking of scrolls, so yeah, the scrolls come in and they are after some young prince that is there. Unfortunately, it's not just a maternity ward; it's a hospital. And this
Yes.
young prince, the scroll prince, they want to put use as a puppet apparently
Hmm.
to take back over the scroll empire
To make
and
the
this
Skrull Empire, to remake the Skrull Empire.
to remake the scroll empire. And she very quickly finds the kid, and he helps her, and vice versa.
I don't know that
Navigate.
I don't know that she very quickly finds the kid.
No, maybe not quickly. You're
There is
right.
no very
Right.
quickly about this. This
It takes
entire
some doing.
this entire issue is one of these great old school with working through this. It turns out,
Maze.
yeah, because she originally just takes out the first two scrolls, and then they're going to send more, and they're like, "Oh, you can save us." And she's like, "No, no, I'm going to get my no. I have a best friend who is going to have no trouble taking care of all these people because she's Captain Marvel, and it'll be fine. And let me contact her." And it turns out that is in the middle of a black hole is where this thing is. So she went through a portal to get to the black hole, and everything is locked down. And if they try to breach it, it'll blow the place up. And so Jessica's on her own. And then they find out who she is, the Skrulls.
That it's Jessica Drew. Well, okay,
Do you
and I went.
not do you know nothing about that?
No, I do. So
Okay.
a couple of things going back on what you said. So you're right. It didn't. It wasn't that she found the kid right away because it turns out that this hospital is a freaking maze, and
Hmm.
there's all manner of extraterrestrial,
I mean, you sent me, yeah,
waterborne,
you sent me all these
yeah,
screenshots of the wonderful. If you've read a
variety
lot of
of.
comic books, at times they will do these great full page things where they're showing them going through a maze, basically the rooms they have to go through to get to stuff. And she's gone through Waterworld, she's crawling through ducks, she's doing. I mean, it's great. It is such a wonderful
Yeah,
throwback with
it
just
is.
bright, beautiful art. So
Very well done.
yes,
Very well done. And the squirrel thing, yes, because I read Secret Invasion when it came out,
okay,
and Jessica Jones was one of the I think many
Jessica Drew.
char- sorry, I said Jessica Jones. Jessica Drew, Spider Woman. So back in Secret Invasion, not to go much into that, but because that's a whole other thing. But there,
She had
Skrulls
been
had
replaced
replaced a
by
bunch
a
of
she'd
supers.
been replaced by a
This,
Skrull,
yeah,
and so
amongst
the
many.
leader by the leader of the Skrulls. So she had been living as her for however long, and we never really got into how long that they were done in that. But then when she shows back up, when the rest of the like Captain America, and whoever else had been replaced show up, she ends up killing lots of Skrulls because let's be blunt, you're not happy, and it really that whole thing really fucked her life up because when she was a Skrull, she was fucking her life up intentionally to do all the Skrully stuff, but
Yeah,
it really messed her life up because no one trusted her because she'd done all these horrible things and she was the face of the Skrulls. It's much like when they did
yeah,
the Captain America was Hydra and then Captain America
Hydra.
wasn't Hydra.
Yeah,
And people are like, "No, you were Hydra. Now what? We're supposed to just trust you now?" And he's like, "But it's this. It was this other. Yeah." So this is coming out of the wreckage of that as well. her life ain't been that great because of everything that happens. So the Skrulls hate her and want to
Yes,
kill her.
and know who she is,
Yes,
obviously.
and yes, when they go, wait a minute, because they recognized her. It's like they all know who Jessica Drew is, enemy number one of
Yeah,
the Skrulls, and I'm sure she feels fine about that because she no likey the Skrulls either.
right. No, so there, and I'm sorry, she didn't find him in quick order. You're right. There are the beautiful splash pages of her having traversed and to go through all sorts of different environments, and you see all sorts of different types of aliens, and there's could be a whole comic book about that hospital probably that what goes on there, which again, really well done in the art school. And then she does eventually find the kid, and the
Mm-hmm.
kid's just a kid,
Oh
and is
yeah,
a cool kid
yeah,
and wants to
he's a
help
really
out.
cool kid. Yeah, very nice, and they eventually save the day. Except, of course, when you have that going on and she's pregnant, they get to the point where she's going to save the day and about to just F it, I'll take on all of these people, and then she has a contraction or something goes wrong, and that's not good. So she then does get something. Did they drug her? They give her something that,
They do give her
yeah, they
something
said, "Oh, you're
because
going to
they're
pay for this. It's going
performing,
to hurt." And she saves the day, and then she gives birth.
and then after she gives birth, she's incentivized to protect her baby,
Mhm.
and she kicks some ass.
Oh, that's right. That's right. They haul her off. She gives birth. They give her something, and then she goes. She just goes. They said, "You're going to regret this." She's like, "I got to save. I have to save all of you and the baby. This is what I do."
And if you
That's the
look,
whole thing. They're like,
there's a
"You're going
great
to hurt.
splash page.
You're going to hurt."
There's
And
a
she's like, "I always hurt. I'm a superhero."
Look at SW number 6 I sent you if you have it pulled up. There's so many great splash pages in this, by the way. As much as I was raving about the art in Cosmic Odyssey,
Oh yeah, it's that one.
Javier Rodriguez does a really great job.
Oh
Where
no.
and she's still in her gown.
The art in this was just great. It's bright and colorful and so in depth. I absolutely love it. I That was great. Yes, when she's biting his ear,
Yes. Hey man.
having one shoot the other as she's venom blasting
Uh huh.
the one and biting the ear of the other. That's
No,
great.
she's
You know,
she's
Peter Parker really got shafted on that because I mean, the next Spider iteration they made was her, and she has a Venom blast, and then they make Miles Morales, and he has a Venom blast. Spidey,
yeah.
the OG Spidey didn't have any of that. There was
Nope.
a great. I told you I was just getting caught up on the Miles Morales run.
Yeah.
During it, Miles uses it, and Spidey's like, "That's just so unfair."
That's funny.
But there
Uh,
was one where they're fighting each other, and he also can Miles Morales can go stealth, and he does
that's
that,
right.
and he tries to attack Peter from behind, and Peter still hits him. He goes, "How do you do that?" He's like, "I've been doing this forever.
I just
I that's
I just do. Like, how
I
do you
can
stick to a wall?
yeah I that's I can you
That's
know
too funny.
you can't sneak up on me. I use my spider sense better than you use your spider sense. It's just the way it works.
Yeah.
So no,
Uh,
that quite possibly the entire reason this is the arc I wanted to read because I really do like how this one run goes on, and I considered starting it in the second graphic novel instead of reading the first one where the baby is actually already there, but I decided to go with this one because I really wanted this one comic
gotcha.
because I do think this is the best
Gotcha.
comic of this run, just because it is so. It's the origin story of a new superhero. You'll find out later the baby has spider powers.
I was gonna guess that there was
Yeah,
eventually gonna come up.
yeah,
Yeah.
because the babysitting because you think a normal baby when that baby starts to crawl he can literally crawl up walls.
Oh, that's great. I didn't even think about that. Okay, cool. Well, then, so she saves the day. Eventually, Carol and her crew, gain access, but by that time, Jessica's already not kind of taking care of business. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, Charles. She goes back, and now, she's got a baby, and now she's dealing with being a new single mom. And and I didn't take a screenshot of this, but there's one where she just wants to tell everybody how. And she's like,
Oh God.
She's like, I'm dying here, but then she's like, I'm fine.
Well, it's the opening to a comic, and
Yeah.
it's just this diet. Well, I used to do this, and it is worth reading that just first thing, and it goes through, and it's just this. It's a new parent thing, and going through anybody that's known a new parent, or if you are a new parent, you were a new parent. I'm sure Ryan, if he read that, would be like, "Oh yeah, I remember that." It's just this whole list of no sleep and no this and no that and da 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 da. The baby
Worrying about everything because you're
worrying
a new
about it. Yeah,
parent.
because you don't know what you're doing. All of this, and she gets all through it and goes, "Well, I'm fine, I guess." And then they flip because it's all done with her facing you, and they flip, and it's She-Hulk and who was the other person in the doorway?
I don't remember.
Okay,
It
so it's
wasn't
two of
Carol,
her
was it?
friends. No, it wasn't Carol.
I don't think it was Carol.
It wasn't Carol.
God, I'm
It's
blanking on
two
who
of
it
them right
was.
there, and they just have that poleaxe look. And she goes, "Oh yeah, I guess I shouldn't have. I guess new parents shouldn't tell non-parents about
Yeah.
what's going on." And
It's part of the crew that eventually take her out to for drinks
well,
and to
see,
go
that was
out and
yeah,
get away from the
it
house.
was leading up to that. So
Right.
they take her out, and it is one of the. It's a great issue because they leave the baby with Roger,
The porcupine.
the porcupine, the former supervillain, and she is frazzled. They're just like, "Come on, you have to go out. We're gonna have drinks. You're gonna be okay. You got to get out of the house." And so she is freaked about leaving her with Roger, and it is one of those classic, wonderful fake outs because the trope is, "Oh well, this guy." He's a former supervillain. He's not going to be able to handle this. This is going to be hilarious, and she's going to freak out. Instead, the hijinks and the craziness goes on with
When
the
they're out.
ladies out, which you expected that to happen anyway. So,
And Hawkeye. Isn't Hawkeye with him too?
oh yeah, of course Hawkeye's with them.
Yeah. Okay.
Hawkeye,
Good.
Hawkeye is both all of their ex boyfriends and one of the girls.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's just kind of part of the crew.
Yeah, he's just
Uh,
he's part of that gang.
oh, it's Squirrel Girl. Okay, I had to find it. It's Squirrel Girl and She-Hulk that show up at her door.
Okay, and so when it all gets back, she comes back, and not only is the baby asleep, Roger has cleaned up
He's
and. He's cleaned the place. He looks fine. He's cleaned up because she hadn't been able to do any of that. And she's like, well, how did you do that? And he explains, well, I was on house arrest when my baby was born, and
That's
my
right.
wife worked, and I did all of this. This is not new to me. My daughter, I spent lots of times with her. It,
Yeah.
it's why you have the grandmother and grandfather come over and help out some. They know what they're doing, even if it's been a while since they've done it.
Yeah.
And I don't even
Uh,
remember what the kerfuffle was when they went out on the town.
I don't. They somehow. I don't know if they did. They get into something.
They
Yeah, they
got into
did. There's
something.
because it's just like a bunch of splash pages. They do get into something, but it's not really described. They just, of course, run into some baddies.
Yeah.
The Boomerang is involved for some reason. The Boomerang guy from the Marvel universe,
Hmm.
and of course, the whole time she, like you said, she's worried about Rogers. Her apartment's on fire, and but you're
Hmm.
right. She comes back and Roger's got it, and of course she's happy and all that. It's really not. It's very well done and very sweet. But then no, and that's pretty much tying it all up because then she's like, you know what? I was a superhero before. I'm still a superhero. I gotta keep on being a superhero. I gotta be me. And so at the very end, it's her suiting up to go out with Carol and do the superhero thing,
Yeah.
which was cool. And I'm not trying to end it or anything, but I thought it
No.
was really cool that she's getting used to being a mom. Roger's going to be there for her apparently going
Hmm.
forward as a good dude to help her out,
Yes.
and he's been there, done that. And I want to. I never thought these words would escape my lips. I want to read more about the porcupine.
Well, you can continue because he's in this.
Is he a big
Oh
player?
yeah,
Okay.
he is a huge player in this arc, and I would encourage you. I'm gonna go. I purposely did not keep going reading on my reread because I just wanted to. I tend to start throwing things in from the other, and I remember some stuff that I could spoil. Well, I spoiled the baby crawling on the ceiling thing.
That's okay. That
Because I
I
thought it
would not
was
have been a
yeah.
surprise
Yeah, well,
when I
no,
saw that.
you wouldn't. And that's funny. There's a particularly fun thing talking about the big splash pages. It happens while they're having another one of these big parties, and Spider-Man is there, and they're all trying to catch the baby.
Oh, okay, cool, cool, cool.
Because
Uh,
I think that's where they discover that he can do it. It's that whole. It was just a look. This is just the fun of comic books. This is not And again, you and I differ. You like huge events, and
Yeah, I do. I do.
I just
I
like
do. But I
fun
do.
comic books.
I appreciate the kind of ground level, everyday life superhero comic just as much as the big event. But I am a sucker for the big, the whole universe is on the line thing. But you know what? I have more than enjoyed. I've very much enjoyed. I can't give enough superlatives. Stuff like this, the Hawkeye stuff, the Alias thing we read, the Stumptown,
Hmm.
and I'm probably leaving one or two out. But no, I like both. You know, and I do like the individual comic book because I got into Batman back in the '80s. I did read a little bit of Spider-Man back then. I always, I guess I had to choose. I always choose the big event and the big group book. But this is very well done, and I didn't want to leave this, and we're not done yet, of course. But Dennis Hopeless is the writer. We mentioned Javier
Oh.
Rodriguez is doing the great art.
Hmm.
Dennis Hopeless is the writer. I don't think I'd ever read anything by him, but now if I see his name on something because of this, I'd be inclined to check it out because this was so well done.
Okay.
So there's that.
All right.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else on Spider-Man. You got any other
I
thoughts,
I really
takeaways?
don't. I just this was my love for this run of comics because I will say I've never until I read this I've never really been a Spider Woman fan. Although I did like it when she got back during the Secret Invasion, and I got to reread Secret Invasion.
You know what? And I knew.
Somebody that loves group books should suggest that.
Well, you know what? Okay, so I've been thinking about that. But before we do that, let me. And I know we're taking this out of order. I said we were done. I was done with Cosmic Odyssey, and
Oh,
I just
good.
wanted to mention. And I had these things written down, and I didn't mention them,
Well,
so I
I
apologize.
want to mention something on a screenshot, so go ahead because you sent me screen. I'm
So,
finally looking at your screenshots.
no, the screenshot, the couple of things that and the screenshots are kind of my reminders of what I want to talk about more than just my notes. I found first, so John Stewart cost the lives. I think they say millions, but I think if it was a planet of any side, it should have been billions. But he's having some issues dealing with costing these people their
That's the
lives,
screenshot. I'm
and it's
you
so
sent
well
me.
done.
Yeah.
And Martian Manhunter gives him the not the reverse psychology pep talk
Uh huh.
because he's holding a gun, thinking that he sends his ring off, and Martian Manhunter is like, "Shit or get off the can,
Yeah, yeah.
buddy."
He tears into it. Just go ahead, do it.
Yeah,
If
because guess what? You're
you're
gonna win
not the
some, you're gonna
guy
lose some.
well he gives him this whole you're not the guy I thought you were. If you this unfortunately is the life we've chosen, and if you can't handle the scale with which your mistakes can cost, then you should just kill yourself. Which
Yeah, to the
I
point
would like
where
to.
he
By the
puts
way,
down the gun. Okay.
I would like to go and explain that this was something that might sure it might work with that if you ever have a friend who is suicidal, do not dare them to do it. That is literally the fucking worst thing you can do. Go ahead, do it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. And in fact, and one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up is because it's an issue. I mean, it's bad. I mean, it's bad when it happens when somebody dies by suicide. Obviously, you don't want to say, go ahead, you wuss. I don't believe you're going to do it. But there
Yeah.
are so many different resources out there. I know on the comic book Twitter. I know a lot of times there are people that tweet out, look, if you're thinking, if you know somebody that's in trouble, or if you're in trouble, call the 1-800 hotline. That's very easy to Google and find. But you're absolutely right. The approach isn't. I think even us as non-psychologists, psychiatrists, mental health professionals can say, don't do what John Jones, Martian Manhunter did here. Although it works out because at the end, of course, comic books, John Stewart puts down the gun, gets his ring back, and says, "Screw you, Jones," and
Yeah.
walks off.
Yeah. He doesn't even
But
get what he
yeah,
did, but and I will give Martian Manhunter something. He is a mind reader.
there you go.
So
That's true. Comic books.
it's comic books. That's the only. But I literally reading that. I'm like, oh dear fucking god! How many comic book fans got their friends to kill themselves accidentally, thinking they were saving them?
Oh my God, I didn't think of that angle. I just thought, that's how low he
Hey kids,
was in
hey
Martian
kids.
Manhunter's
Here's
turn.
how to help your friend who tells you he's thinking of killing. Or when you walk in and they're holding the gun, go ahead, do it, do it, you pussy.
Yeah. Then the other thing, so I guess plot was, look, this is not this shouldn't, I don't feel like this should be a thing where we're doing a blow by blow of the plot, but at the very end of it, you know, Darkseid, of course, double crosses and tries to take on the anti-life entity in its own universe, and of course fails utterly, to the point where Doctor Strange has got a Doctor Strange, whoops, Doctor Fate joins forces. He has to use his power, the Demon, the High Father, Orion, and Darkseid, and of course they use a pentagram, which I was kind of surprised they got away with in the even in the 80s, because that's very occult. It's not an upside down pentagram, but it's still the 5 pointed star that a lot of times, I think, is it five, or am I mistaking that for, or is the devil worship goat star? No, it's a 5 pointed star. Anyways, I thought that was a cool shot that I sent you, where
Yes.
it's where they go and they're having to put they're going to battle against the anti-life entity and Dr. Fate. There's some kind
Why aren't
of
they all? The only problem with it is they're not. If they're using that as a power thing, shouldn't they either be each in one of the points or on one of the points instead of just kind of?
around it,
Yeah, I'm not
near
not
it. I
not,
don't
not to
know,
say the
but
art's not, it looks good and that's probably what it is, but shouldn't you have them like on each point or in the center of each of the five triangles there? You know what I mean? Instead of one in the
yeah,
middle and all on the
they're
out,
just
two of them completely out of the pentagram. And okay, sorry, you brought it up
yeah.
and I had to nitpick it. This is what
No, well,
happens when I
but
actually pay attention to the art.
well, speaking of sacrificing, at the end, and it's something I forgot, and that's why I wanted to go back to this because of the screenshot.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Fate, to seal off the anti-life entity from our universe, has to destroy some kind of parallel or intervening, or there's a universe somehow that's in between ours and the anti-life entity universe, and he destroys it to create a buffer. And
Oh,
he's like, I hope there wasn't anything alive in there. Oh well.
oh, see, that's a
You're
wonderful.
like, who
It
gets?
isn't
That's a
that
kind of a big deal, dude.
isn't that a wonderful placeholder that I don't know that anybody's ever picked it up, but that you talk about great things where creative comic book writers get stuff from. That seems to me to be one
Mhm.
of those because you're like, oh, wait a minute, I can
I
take
can jump
this,
off on that.
I can jump off
Yeah.
from there. There's something there. What happened to that? Did he really did he really destroy it or did it get moved and what were the effects? You know what I mean?
Were there any survivors that somehow were and
Yes,
that are
exactly.
pissed?
Angry survivors coming into the world, or maybe teaming up with the anti-life equation or entity. Oh dear God, this whole anti-life thing. I think that might be my problem with it. It makes no
What?
fucking sense. Anti-life is just death law. It's the anti-life equation. Okay, it's a gun.
It's death.
It's a gun. I mean, the anti-life. Well, no, I have to figure out the equation. Hit him with a rock. I. It's not a hard equation. We've been killing people for as long as there's been people. We've been killing people.
It's the but it's the whatever the death of everything at once. The death of all sentient or not sentient, just all life done
Okay,
is the big deal.
at the
I
end
don't.
of the universe, that's what will happen.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
mean, anyway, yeah, it's big ideas with it's what they think of as big ideas that don't have any real fucking purpose.
Well, it's fun.
Is it
The whole universe is at stake. I enjoyed it.
okay?
I did. I'm
All
not.
right. I'm glad,
I did enjoy it on the reread.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. You were
But
wrong
it's
to enjoy it.
let me. Well, no,
No,
I'm not. But
no, I know.
I know you're just saying that to say that. No, it's just one of those things though. But I think it's kind of like if you would have read, like, there's books that I read when I was a kid that I'm
Uh-huh.
sure if I reread I would say, oh, okay, that's dated, but I still like it. The same thing. I read this back when it came
I
out.
got
It
you.
was
No.
when I was first going to a comic book specialty shop, because this was not on the newsstand.
Mhm.
This was at, I forget what it was called, in San Antonio. It was off Bandera, Comics World, or anyways, it's something World. Oh, it's going to drive me crazy because it's not in existence anymore. No, because it was this, because it came out in '88. I remember getting this, and this was, pretty run of the mill superhero stuff. A lot of death, a lot of Thanagarians died, a whole solar system died. But right around this time in '88, when I picked this up,
And you wonder why
that's when I picked
Thanagarians
up
are so angry.
They Get Slaughtered by Orion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
No, and this made me think, I was just thinking
Yeah.
out loud now. Around this time is when I picked up The Killing. Oh my God, I'm blanking on the name. The
The
Killing
Killing
Joke?
Joke.
The Batman.
Yeah, the Killing Joke.
And I remember buying it with, like, it took a lot of allowance money back then. Yeah, because I was like in eighth grade, I think. That was a comic book I picked up and read. And I remember when I was reading it at home, kind of looking over my shoulder, like, I'm pretty sure my parents wouldn't want me reading this, but I was all in. I was like, this is amazingly terrifying and good and weird, and holy shit, what has Batman comic books been to this point? And of course, I didn't know Alan Moore was Alan Moore,
Yeah.
and Brian Boland was Brian Boland and all that. But anyways, I don't know, weird tangent. So that
Yeah.
I wanted to revisit the end of whatchamacallit, Cosmic Odyssey, because of the thing with John Stewart having a crisis and wanting to maybe kill himself, and just the weird pentagram at the end. But yeah, that's it.
I can see why you still enjoyed it on the reread, because there literally was nothing wrong with it. It was exactly what you would have remembered it as, but it's exactly why I wouldn't have read it at the time. And actually, I might have enjoyed it if I'd a little bit if I'd have read it in the 80s.
Yeah,
In fairness, I might have enjoyed it a little bit. No, so I might have enjoyed it at that point. I would never have picked it up, because I even then one I didn't read DC. I mean, literally did not read anything of DC. I never even I None of it intrigued me when I saw it, and it's not like I didn't like Batman or Superman. I just didn't read Batman or Superman comics. I might have read Teen Titans if I'd have known about it. If I'd had
yeah,
anybody that had a copy of Teen Titans, because that probably would have been up my alley, because I didn't want to read adult superheroes. I wanted to read younger superheroes, even though Spider-Man was an adult at that point, but still, younger. New Mutants. I read New Mutants. I didn't read X-Men. I read the. I was a kid. I wanted more kid stuff. I didn't read Power Pack because they were too young, and I would have been
right.
embarrassed I'd have been embarrassed if anybody found out how much comic books I read. But I'd have really been embarrassed if they found out I read Power Pack.
About elementary school
Yeah,
kids.
and Archie. I used to read a lot of Archie
Yeah.
comics.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I never did. I never got into Archie, but hey, the Bugs Bunny or Scrooge McDuck comic
Uh-huh.
books, yeah, those were a player
Yeah, I would get
for a little
the
while there.
digests at the grocery store, the double digest, the small Archie comic things, because you get them
Yeah,
cheap. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
the little
yeah,
things, and I would read them because they were inexpensive, and Betty and Veronica were hot, and they were funny for a
yeah.
kid.
No, and hey, look, it's not like my DC stuff. I mean, I got into more DC like in the '90s and early 2000s. The DC stuff, a little bit of Teen Titans back then, Justice League that we read.
Hmm.
The reboot after Infinite Crisis, some Batman, and just hit or miss. Like when John Byrne went over there and did Superman, I remember and picking that up. I'd buy it,
Hmm.
and
This
I'm
is
trying
not
to
a
think back
library.
then.
Buy it or get out.
Yeah, no, but much like you, I mean, I did read a little bit, but not nearly as. I mean, I was all in on Marvel because it was alpha. I mean, out to the point where besides Avengers, X-Men, New Mutants, Fantastic Four, I was reading some Alpha Flight.
Hmm.
I ran just certain. I would get into Spider-Man at times. I would get into Captain America at
Hmm.
times for certain. If I caught something at the beginning of an arc or.
I
But yeah.
I read
Anyways,
I read some GI Joe,
yeah, my brother was into GI Joe and I read it,
and
and when I didn't knock it, I was just like, "You buy that because I'm going to read it when you're done."
yeah, I read GI Joe, and I never watched the GI Joe because I had friends in elementary school that watched the GI Joe cartoon, and I never I because anytime I turned it on, I was like, this is the worst thing I have ever seen, and I wouldn't watch it. And then I kind of it kind of confused me when I picked up some GI Joe comic books, and I'm like, these are pretty good. So I read some GI Joe comic books. I'm very tempted to dig them out of my comic book stuff and find out if they're still how bad they are. Let me put it that way. Find out how bad they are.
Well, my brother would buy some comic books, and he was more into the GI Joe and Transformer comic books because he was 4 years younger than me, and
Yeah.
we would watch the cartoons too. The comic book I'm interested to see, because I still have, speaking of, from back then, there is a comic book at the comic book store, not at the grocery store, Alien Legion, that
Mm-hmm.
was created by Archie Goodwin. That was an Epic Comics, which was an imprint of Marvel. It was essentially the French Foreign Legion in space,
Oh, okay.
and I just remember utterly enjoying it. It was dark. There was a lot of death in it. But I am curious, and I'm not suggesting it for next time, but that's something I would maybe want to go back and I'm curious. Like you're curious about GI Joe, I'm curious of Alien Legion being
I
war, military
you,
eccentric.
you know what I kind of want to read, but I have no way to do it because it's not on Marvel Unlimited.
What is what?
This is dumb, and I'm sure I would hate it because I never picked it up as a kid. Rom Space Knight.
You know what? Nah, if you like sci-fi, I would wonder if it holds up or is okay for the time, especially for the time period. But I know people that rave about it, and I picked up issues of it. I would get random issues, those five
Hmm.
packs and three packs you
Yeah.
would get at like Toys R Us or Five and Dimes. I would get issues in there, and I remember thinking, you know what, pretty cool.
Okay. Okay.
You
Now,
know,
no,
uh,
but again, I didn't read it when I was in my tween and teen years. I'm talking about picking it up
yeah.
in my,
Now.
let's call it my early 40s. He lied.
That's too bad. I get it's you know what, and I canceled. I was using Marvel Unlimited and DC Infinite Universe so little.
Uh huh.
I canceled it over the holiday. I was
Okay.
like, why am I paying for this every month? I can re-up whenever I want. Of course,
Okay.
I didn't pay for the year.
Oh,
I just was like, why
I
am I
pay for
paying a
Marvel
monthly
Unlimited
fee?
annually. I just go ahead and
Uh,
drop the annual because you save, and I'm not going to cut it off, so I pay it once a year because I read it.
gotcha.
I read Marvel Unlimited. I'm up on I'd been not reading it, and recently I've been catching up on some stuff because I got caught up on. I hadn't read Spider-Man in a while, and I was not reading it on purpose because I was wanting it to build up so I could get through the arc they were getting doing. I wanted to get through the Kindred stuff, which you have no idea what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
but I wanted to get through that. I
No.
wanted to see where
Have
they
no
were
idea.
going with it, and I was tired of reading it every week or every other week, or I think they had lengthened the time between it. I like it when they're putting out three Spider-Man amazing 3 times a month, but we have way digressed. So what
Well,
would
hold on. I do want to
okay
point something out for you real fast on the
okay
ROM thing, which I
uh-huh
think is interesting. ROM was a franchise, not a franchise, a
no
merchandising, what do you call
I
it, licensing thing,
yeah, it
and I
was
think that's
it
why
was a
it's not on
Mattel.
Marvel
Oh,
Unlimited. It's
I know exactly why.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, no, yeah, it
okay,
was a Mattel made a toy that sucked and then licensed the rights to that toy. No, evident no, read about
yeah,
it.
you're right.
The toy sucked.
It was, yeah, it did,
And
but the comic book was good
well
back then.
that's because they gave Marvel could do whatever the hell they wanted with it. They
Yeah,
licensed this thing, so they made a comic book, and they evidently and they pushed it hard. The reason I only knew about it is they pushed ROM in a lot of my comics. They would the ROM Space Knight would be up in the top left corner where the item number was. It was like a mascot thing at times. So
right.
yeah, they were pushing ROM on us, and I don't think I ever saw. I rarely would even see the ROM comic at the comic book store I went to. So I think
Well,
we.
no, and they put some heavy. I mean, Bill Mantlo was on it for a
Mhm.
while, I know, as a writer, and he was a good writer back then. And I think one of the Buscema brothers, I think it was Sal Buscema, who's a great comic book artist, was
Yeah,
on it.
well, they gave it was a thing. Hey, we're doing this. We're getting to make it up. It's not really with the other comics. It's in the universe, but not really. You can do stuff, and so
But
people.
they'd have people appear in it every so often.
Well,
Like you'd
yeah,
have, Spider-Man or X-Men, or I feel like
I'm
I remember
saying, but
seeing those.
they were able to do their own thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it isn't with
yeah, yeah,
existing canon. It's one of the reasons why I like some of these Spider Woman, Miss Marvel when they did it. Although they still have to, it's still a name. Gwenpool, you can do whatever the hell you want with Gwenpool. Hawkeye, with that Hawkeye run, Hawkeye only exists in group books, but here's a book that you can really go nuts in because it's just
yeah.
Hawkeye. So this is what I love about comics is when you give, even though I do love certain of my characters and I stick with Spider-Man and it's great, but I love this, hey, let's give these writers that are really good writers some free reign to really mess around in this medium a little bit and let's see what they do. Now, unfortunately, they end up being short arcs because I'm not the normal comic book guy that just absolutely wants to read the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
I say that that's not really what goes on. I'm okay with change. That's why I so much enjoyed what's its name on Slot's run on Spider-Man. It
Yeah.
was great because he went nuts with it. So getting
Now you
back
have me
to
all intrigued because no, I'm sorry, real fast
you're
on
back
this
on
ROM. Now you got
ROM
me on this
Space
ROM
Knight.
kick because because I looked it up. It was Bill Mantlo and Sal Buscema on it forever, and then at the end it's Steve Ditko doing the art at
Really,
the
I
end
think I remember that. I
of the
think we
run of
I
the 75 issue run.
I legitimately did some research last year just because it came up in something and I was looking at it. I was like, wait, what was the name of that? That's why I knew all about the Mattel thing. And yeah, it's just
That's amazing that those two
interesting.
heavy hitters were. Anyways, yeah. So I know big bunny
Um,
trail, but
Ditko.
Go ahead.
honestly was not really a heavy hitter in the 80s anymore.
Well, I know.
And that is not a knock on Ditko in any way whatsoever, and I hope his family gets paid because they're suing Marvel.
I know. And they will. I'm hoping, knock on wood.
Oh,
I
they're
think
gonna write a check. They're gonna want to make
they're
this
going to
go
write
away.
it.
And
Yeah, I would
it's
think
not
so.
like these Marvel movies haven't made billions of dollars.
Exactly.
So start
I
sharing
think
the
they're going
fucking
to, yeah.
wealth.
Yeah, I
Anywho,
agree.
so what do you want to read next time?
Okay, so speaking of, we've now touched on the Skrulls a couple different times.
Oh,
Uh,
fuck me. Okay.
well, remember, and even though it was weird, Avengers Forever, you had the whole thing with what's his face, Rick Jones, and
You
the
want to
thing
do the
with
scroll,
that
the
thing.
Kree scroll war? Okay. You
I and
warned me
look,
that you
and
were going to make me read this at some point.
yeah, and look, I this is something that's way before my time because it's this. I think I texted you that I was going to suggest something that came out during the Nixon administration. This came out in '71, and it's on Hoopla, and
We
it's 200 and something. I mean,
we
for
have
comic books, it's 200 something pages.
yeah, it's picture books off.
Yeah, I know.
It
But I'm speaking of afraid
it's
it's not
hold
going to
on,
hold
but
up well.
it's a 1971. Do you remember back last year you suggested a little thing written by the great Jack Kirby, the Jack
Okay,
King Kirby, called Eternals that was written in what year?
was it 71 also? I
Oh,
don't even remember.
it was around that time. It was early 70s.
Yeah, yeah.
So what I'm going to ask you is, are you sure you want to suggest this?
I do
I'm
because
teasing you. I
I've
absolutely
never
want you to
read it.
suggest this.
I've never read it because I was about to suggest because you were talking about Jessica Drew. So Jessica Drew. I was about to say
Hmm.
Jessica Jones. You're talking about Jessica Drew and the Secret Invasion, and I was about to say Secret Invasion, but I was like, you know what? I've never read the darn Kree Squirrel War that everybody raves about or talks about, and all these subsequent things I've read.
Yeah, it could be.
So
It could be good.
more just
I think that's great. We can read it. Well, not like I
yeah.
obviously we can read it because you're suggesting it, and I don't get to say what
Yeah,
you
I'm suggest
suggest.
it's well, no, you do. I mean, if you were to absolutely say no, I'm not freaking reading that and
Oh,
suggest something else, I would say okay,
that is not how this works. I'm not gonna.
okay.
Yeah, these are your picks.
So yeah, so I'm
I am
suggesting
warning
that it's
you.
all in,
I am warning you. If Walking Dead comes out of your mouth, that's fine. But
I read that for a little while.
okay. But you know how I feel
It
about
was all right.
zombies, so I will. If you make me read it, I will read it. And you do not know how angry I will be with you if I like it. I say
Hey, do
this.
you not like horror stuff in general,
I'm not
or
big on horror
just
stuff.
the
I don't like
zombies?
zombies. I think zombies are fucking stupid. And I'm going to tell you this. I also think short stories are stupid mostly. So my book club I was in, one of the things we
Hmm.
read was World War Z. World War
Yeah,
Z is a series of short things.
vignettes or something,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
they're
I've heard.
like little short stories all tied together, going up as the zombie war World War Z starts, getting to the apex, and then going down the other way to the end of it. Two things
Okay.
I hate. One thing I loved. Not that I'll read it again. That was an incredibly good book. I highly
Oh, okay,
recommend people. No, that's where that joke of if you make me read
okay.
World War Z and I like it, I will be so pissed off at you because I went in reading that book going, son of a bitch, I do not want to read this. Oh, this is pretty good. Oh, this is pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, that's fine. So but we'll do the Kree Skrull War. Um, Hopefully I have the time to do what you do and take notes of everything that disgusts me about this, so I won't have to just pull it up out of memory. One of these days, I'm going to really pay attention to one of these things you make me read I don't like, and you think I'm
And
mean
go
now.
nuts and just gonna go nuts on it, just nitpick it and just like and this and what is this and went back and looked at the continuity and this doesn't make any sense because he didn't appear until
No, no.
Fantastic Four number
No,
39.
no, I will never do that. I will
Okay,
never do that because no, I'll never be that guy. You know what? You look at it and go, oh, I guess the continuity changed. That's literally the answer in comic books. The continuity
yeah,
changed. What you
yeah.
didn't
There's a
realize
whole
was,
thing
yeah,
about it.
because we can,
Retcons.
I can retcon that. I can, I, yeah, nope. It was all a dream when you thought, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Because I'm suggesting this because I'm not going to guarantee that the next thing we'll read will be Secret Invasion,
Hmm.
but my first thought was let's do Secret Invasion, but I've never read Kree Scroll War, and before I reread Secret Invasion, I'd like to have the background of this darn thing.
Okay.
So
And
there we go.
I'm gonna go light again. And I'm going to give you something right up your alley. It's going to be about it's about a lawyer. It's
Oh,
a
cool.
very serious look about the law in Marvel Comics. It is a great She-Hulk arc that came out 2015, 2017. I don't know. I will get you the exact one. It is also on Hoopla. We'll read the first arc of that. I enjoyed it when I read it, and I read the first episode. Oh, fuck me. I read the first issue
Ha!
of it.
You didn't quite say it though.
It all came out. I just stopped. I stopped making sounds as I finished saying the word. So no, I said it. The first issue already. I really liked it. I forgot to write down exactly which one it is, but it.
Yeah, there's a few.
Yeah, no, there's a number of She-Hulks on there on Hoopla. So I'll get it to you. I'd look it up
Is
on.
it the one where she's in her? Never mind. I'm just looking at the covers now.
Yeah.
Okay, and cool because the last time I read She-Hulk again back in the '80s was when John Byrne did the sensational She-Hulk, which I'm looking at right now in Hoopla,
Hmm.
which she broke. She this was before. Well, I don't know before Deadpool, but she was breaking the fourth wall back then. It
I
was really, I thought really, but I liked it back then. But
I
who
read
knows if it
She-Hulk as
holds
a
up?
kid,
But
and I think I've mentioned I had
yeah,
a little thing for She-Hulk. Yeah,
yeah, there you go. Hey,
yeah,
I don't blame you.
I'm okay with it. You
Uh, yeah, just send me the link or the screenshot of it so I
Yeah,
make sure
I
I
will do
do
that
the right
when
one.
I pull it up because I've always enjoyed She-Hulk and I've read some stuff more recent stuff than what I did when I was a kid. And they do some again. It's a character you can have fun with
Yeah,
because it's not this. Oh my lord! It has to be this way. This is the way this character is. It's a hey. This is a I hate to say it secondary character in the Marvel pantheon, and you can play around a little bit. So.
you're right. They give them, like you were saying about, what we're just talking about, Rom or any of those
Hmm.
other, kind of like you said, not to, belittle the character or the people that work on them,
And it
but they get
doesn't.
they get more free reign.
Yeah,
They get more free reign.
it's not belittling. They're getting an opportunity to see if they can turn it into something because there have been times where they get this opportunity and it turns into a long run because it sells. So that it's a good and that's where we get a lot of good writers in some of the big books. They write something like this and maybe it doesn't take off, but it's read by enough people and they get a good idea of what they can do and then they get on a big book and they bring a new
Well,
vision
right.
to a big book. So I enjoy watching or reading these things. I hope you like it because it is so. I will say my one problem with it is so grounded in the law that.
Really?
Sorry,
Okay,
no,
I was gonna say. Okay, God, I was gonna say what? That'd be
it
hilarious if they
is
were getting into
it
like
is
motion practice
no
and
no yeah I know that wouldn't be just but
it's like, oh my God, I got this deadline today.
it is her being an attorney.
Okay.
Yeah, it
And spoil it if you want to, or if you don't.
okay.
Does Matt Murdock make some appearance in this
I
at some
don't
point?
remember. It's been a number of years since I read the whole
Okay.
thing.
Okay. All right. Oh, I think I see. There's one here where she's like on the courthouse steps. Superhuman law. Anyways, okay.
So
Anyways, okay. Well, cool, man. I'm looking
yeah,
forward to that.
I am too. So
All right.
I think I mentioned earlier we have a website. No, I didn't mention the website.
No, you did not.
havandcharles.com. We have a website. I think we first mentioned it in our last episode of the first season, and I don't think we mentioned it in the last episode. Patrick, my brother, put us together a website. It's havandcharles.com. And you're welcome to go there. All of the email for the show that I mentioned before, havandcharlestalkcomics at gmail.com is there. Our Twitter handles, I believe, are there as well. I'm at HerringRedReal, and Hav is at HavGonzoTweets.
And then the comic book podcast Twitter handle is at J and C Talk Comics, and is spelled out. So JANDC Talk Comics is our Twitter handle.
Yes.
And yeah, and then you can see the unpaid intern throw shade mostly at me, but now sometimes at Charles every once in a while, especially now that we're getting back up and running.
Well, I had to dig him out of the
Yeah,
gutter he had fallen into and make him start promoting the fact that we're going to have a second season. I mean, we've now
yeah.
got this will be the second podcast in the can and I still don't know when I'm going to drop the first episode of the second season. Soon.
Hey, it's okay to
So,
have a few in the can, and then we can
yes.
then you don't have to. We're not on in a bind.
Yes. It makes it
And then
easier.
hopefully, oh yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
uh,
Hopefully what?
I was going to say, and then hopefully at some point this season, we'll have a sit down with me, you, and Caesar, and we can talk about all the, not all, but the big ones. You know, the Spider-Man movie,
No, we're going to talk about the
maybe
Spider-Man movie. I
Eternals.
don't care about any of this other shit. We'll touch on it, but we're going to talk about the Spider-Man movie. I need to talk about the Spider. Damn it, Hav! I need to talk about the Spider-Man movie.
Well, I know you do, and we purposely, I feel, haven't really talked about it because we're saving the gold for the podcast. Because I have some thoughts,
I
and
ha-
there's other stuff. Like I want
I
to
have
talk
to see it
Eternals. I don't
again.
want to talk about it.
You do not want to talk Eternals
Um,
with me.
I do. That's
It's
why
just
I
going to be a
do want to talk Eternals
whole.
with you.
It's just going to be a whole hour of me saying I was right and you were wrong. I was right and you were wrong. Now,
See, I want to get that out there. What else? Oh, Shang-Chi.
oh man, I need to watch that again. I liked that.
There's been other stuff. Shoot, there's so much stuff out there right now. Have you been watching Peacemaker?
I have
I
the
know you're
last two
not a
episodes.
DC guy.
You know, I've loved
Okay.
Peacemaker. I have to watch the last two episodes.
Okay.
I'm
Because I really liked the Suicide Squad. I thought that was great.
The Suicide Squad was awesome. I watched that on New Year's Eve for the first time because it finally came
Okay.
back onto HBO. I got HBO Max right after they took it off, and so I've been going
Gotcha.
along, and now they've got it, and so I watched that, and then I wanted to make sure I watched it before I started watching the Peacemaker because then Peacemaker came out, and I've been watching that, and I mean we can also talk about. I know it's a comic book podcast, but they make Star Wars comic books,
They do.
so we can talk about the Book of Boba Fett.
Boba Fett.
Yes. So we can
Yeah.
do that. So
We
two,
got a lot. So just
yes,
to preview what else we got coming down podcast. Once we get a couple of these in the can, and hopefully Caesar can join us at some point for one of those
yeah,
special episodes.
absolutely. So thank you for all of those that have listened. Special thanks for everyone that has emailed us. So thanks, Patrick.
Patrick. Yeah. No, yeah, ditto. Thank you, everybody that listens. If you have any suggestions or want to read along with us and have comments about what we suggested and maybe suggestions based on what we've read before, hey, like we've been saying, email us. I appreciate the emails, or tweet at us because that's always fun.
That
But yeah,
is, that is. All right. Y'all have a great rest of the day in which you're listening. Thank you very much.
bye.